I'm Johan De Wachter. I'm an architect and I'm from Belgium, but I'm working mainly in the Netherlands and Belgium. Recently also we have offices in Rotterdam and in Antwerp, and we're doing different types of projects. In Belgium it's mainly housing projects, like larger scale housing projects, social housing, affordable housing. And in the Netherlands we are mostly occupied with transformation projects, and it goes from old factory sites to renovation of warehouses into offices and this kind of more complex questions. The thing is that the projects in the Netherlands that we are doing and the projects in Belgium that we are doing are actually mainly different. When they're more similar in terms of topics, program or location, let's say, the approach is more or less similar, only that maybe you could say that in the Netherlands the process is more important than in Belgium. And in Belgium the result is maybe more important. So in that way we have to force ourselves in Belgium to take the clients and the people that live in the surroundings, to take them in the design process with us, with our team. In the Netherlands it's more natural, that kind of how do you say, the work or the normal way of doing things in the Netherlands is different, in the sense that the process together with the people of the neighborhood or the different experts that are involved in the areas is more integrated already. And in Belgium you have to force ourselves as a design team, but also the clients and the people of the municipality into this process. We're doing it's like more strategies, like future-proof strategies for a Zwitsal factory. I don't know what Zwitsal brand is known here. It's like baby shampoos and diapers and all these kind of things. So the factory left there a long time, a lot of years ago. The city is owner, and it's about 15 or 20 buildings that are temporarily used by offices, artists, innovators, like this kind of people, but this kind of between temporary and semi-permanent. There is also a brewery which is more permanent. So that's a very large-scale project. Another project we're doing for Unilever. It's now a part of Unilever is sold and is upfield, and it's all factories. And above the factories there was all warehouses and attics empty, and we transformed it into offices for the new company. That's about 5,000 square meters in total. The whole project. Zwitsal is much bigger. In Belgium the projects are different. It's mainly, sorry, we get commissions through competitions, and there the projects vary. It's mainly housing, so it varies from 10 to the largest project we have is about 180 houses in one urban plan, and the architecture of that also. There is a lot of talented Lithuanian architects, young architects, or young students that studied in Delft, next to Rotterdam in the university. And since I have the office in Rotterdam, after their studies or during their studies they were looking for jobs. So for a long time I had a lot of Lithuanian people in the office, and through them I got invited to give a lecture in Kaunas. It's already 2016 I think, or something like that, or 2015 even. Or even before, I don't really remember. So I gave a lecture on the architecture day in Kaunas, and then somebody of the university saw it, and then we got in contact, and they asked if I would like to teach. And since I've been teaching a long time in the Netherlands, in Delft and academy in Rotterdam, but then at that time I was not teaching, and I like teaching. I really enjoy teaching. I was very interested to come here and to see what it was to teach in another context. So we had an agreement, and I came First for 6 months, and then another semester, and then another semester, and now we are here still, let's say. But I'm still enjoying, and it's still very interesting. It's also nice to work in another context. For me, that's very refreshing. Another context like physical, another country, because we always do the projects here, like with the students. And it's also nice for me to work with the Lithuanian architects or urban planners I teach together with. So for me, it's very interesting to be here. In the end, both the Soviet-era housing projects and the modern or modernist housing projects in the rest of Europe are similar. Like the ideas are similar. Just because there was a border somewhere, the scale on which it was developed maybe is different. The amount of diversity in the plans is different, but essentially the issues are relatively similar. The only thing, of course, is that the state of the buildings in the former Eastern Europe or the former Soviet Union, let's say, is different. And then you have Eastern Europe, but I was also, last year I was in Tbilisi. There you have the same type of buildings, but it's still a step further to the east, and there the state is again different from the Lithuanian state. So in that sense, the urgency of transformation in Lithuania or in former Eastern European countries, and then in between Eastern European countries there is still a lot of difference of the state. But anyway, in Lithuania the urgency of transformation of this former Soviet era housing neighborhoods, it's much higher than the urgency you have for transformation of modernist or modern housing quarters in the Netherlands, because most of the times they're still collective property in Western Europe. Most of the times they've been maintained and managed by housing corporations. So the state is relatively okay. There is social issues, the same kind of social issues you have here, but building-wise the quality is better. There is a lot of transformation. We recently did a transformation project of this kind of housing ensemble, let's say, but it's on another scale. I think in Western Europe it's about projects, it's about housing projects. In Lithuania it's about housing. It's another problem. It's like a housing problem. It's not a building problem. So I'm really convinced there should be a strategy that is not only about renovating, but it's about a vision on how people will live in the future. And that, I think, is the biggest difference. Of course, there is very acute, important problems now to keep the buildings up, let's say, and to keep them waterproof and to keep them isolated and to do small things. But the issue, the size, this one typology in Lithuania is 55% of the people live in these buildings. It's another issue than you have in other countries. Actual transformation of the buildings is very important, but here there is a step before that. There should be a strategy where all these different transformations of the buildings, of the public space, of the parking, of the sustainability of the buildings kind of is integrated in. So the strategy, and that goes about vision, it's about politicians that should have a clear vision on housing for the country. It's about how do you make sure that money is inserted in this whole operation, because it's not a project, it's a kind of whole operation that should have almost a nationwide impact, and all the different projects should be under that umbrella of this general strategy to approach it. And the most important aspect there is that there is a lot of development at the moment in Lithuania, in Kaunas, in Vilnius, in different cities. But everybody ignores these microrayon areas, because it doesn't have a good name. People don't see the potential, and they just go or on the sides, eat a little bit of the space away, or look for other spaces to develop. Or it's urban sprawl with low-rise neighborhoods, or it's inner city developments that are not implicated with the microrajons. Like more like in Vilnius, you have a lot of apartment developments. In Kaunas, you have more the urban sprawl in the outside the city, but in the city region, let's say. So I think it's to make developers, politicians, investors, like domestic and foreign probably, to make them see the potential of these areas. And then, only then, there is a possibility to actually transform them into into neighborhoods with nowadays comfort and standards. So I think like a combination of demolishing parts, reconstructing existing buildings, like transforming existing buildings and building new, that is the only solution, because we have to find a strategy that is good for housing itself and for the people, is good for the public space, but it's also financially feasible. And that part is also a very important part, and you can only do that with like attracting interest and of money, of investors or of developers to these areas. If you talk about microrayon areas, if it's just to make people that can make a difference in terms of investment and development, to make them see the potential. That is the biggest problem. So on the one hand, if you do projects in these areas, it's about solving the basics. Solving the quality of a house, the quality of public space, the possibility to park your car, the public transport is around the corner, and to have the sufficient, it is mainly housing, but there is still other programs, there is services, there is shopping, but is to attract the people that can help you reach your goals, to see the potential of the areas. There's a lot of potential, there's a lot of space. I mean, the microrayon areas, there is space. There is only 12% built, average, over a generic microrayon, let's say. There's 12% built, there's 88% of open space. What do you do with that? The municipality doesn't have the means to maintain everything, so it's just grass and trees and wasteland and wrong parking, let's say. So how do you kind of valorize that potential without building everything full, but by creating a new logic and a new quality on these areas where people can earn money, but also the existing dwellers have an upgrade of their house and their living environment. That is, I think, is the thing. So it's really about attracting people and making people see the potential of these areas. In this kind of areas, in this modernist neighborhoods, the biggest difference is the property. So in the Netherlands and also in Belgium, most of these buildings are collective property and it's rent. Not all of them, but a lot of them, and it's often social rent. So at least to make a change, you have collective property. So you have one owner that can decide together with the people that live there, but in the end one owner that can decide, and if he has the financial means to change something, they can change. In Lithuania, after independence, all this property became individual. So all the people living in the microrayon apartments, they own their own house. And research shows that it's mostly not the most financially strong people that live in these houses, so there's very little financial space to invest. That's what you see also in the microrayons where there is transformation. It's minimal transformations. It's isolating facades and putting new plaster and paint it in a color, and that's very dense. There is no strategy as for the whole neighborhood. It's mostly about buildings. So the individual property is a problem, so you have to have some kind of financial product or financial incentive to make things rolling. And then, of course, all the space in between the buildings is public, or most of it is public. So you also need the municipalities and the government to be part of the whole operation. So it's a much more complex. You have the individual ownership with few financial means. You have the municipality who owns the land, who actually also don't have the means to maintain it or to change it, so it stays what it is. And developers that could have potentially financial means to invest, they are not interested in this area. So so all these problems or all these issues, they don't really match to make a kind of successful start of a project, let's say. And that's the main problem. You see, there is very little change. There's very little stimulus or stimulants to change things. Parts are in use, parts are not in use. You have free economic zones everywhere. Kaunas, now we are working in Šiauliai. There is also a free economic zone where taxes are lower. So instead of transforming the existing ones, people go to the new, or new investments go to the new zone. So there is very little influx into this deserted, oftenly probably also polluted areas. It could be that the city can move there and the industry moves more to the free economic zones and more to the outside, or more condensed in some places, that you really redefine what is city and living and yeah, city, and what is industry. But there is very little transformation in deserted economy. You also see it in Šiauliai, where the existing business areas are, let's say, 80% filled, but there is abandoned buildings, there is wastelands, there is plots for sale that are not getting sold, and at the same time free economic zones are being, a free economic zone is being developed next to the airport there, and there is no strategy on who is going where, which investment is canalized to which area. And that's in a way a pity, I think, because there could be a potential developing these free economic zones with the relation to the old, more inner city industrial areas or working areas, that the combination of a new development and a transformation of the existing into a new kind of urban environment, that would be interesting to put this connection between the two. But at this moment, maybe there is, but I don't know if that is on an agenda on somebody's desk somewhere in the country, let's say. That's a very difficult question, because I don't think there is one path to follow. The only thing I can say is open your mind, go abroad, but also come back. A lot of my Lithuanian friends that were in the Netherlands, I think almost all of them came back and are quite successful working here. Probably with methods they learned there, with the background they learn here, or in the university here or in Vilnius. So it's a combination of the different experiences. But I would suggest open your mind, work hard. That's always. I mean, if you don't work hard, for sure it's not going to work. If you work hard, it's not a guarantee to success either. But see what's happening around. I think that's the most thing. Get experience in different places, and then see where you fit the best. No, I enjoy it a lot. We had now like 5 years, I think, 4 or 5 years. I'm working with Martina's in the studios. We did different topics, mainly about microrayons, but also about other projects, about industrial sites and this kind of things. Now in Šiauliai, which is again a different topic, is more urban planning on a larger scale. But it's very nice, and we tried, since I'm not living here, we try to teach longer hours, less times but longer hours and try to stimulate the discussion with the students and try to not tell them what to do but try to make them figure out how to do it and just to support them, because we have a lot of time in these days that I'm here. We have a lot of time to talk, and I think it's very important that they learn how to express themselves and to talk about the projects and not just to do them and hang them on the wall. And I think that's very important, because in the end you just always have to sell your design or explain it to people, and that is I think a very important part of our job anyway. Let's say it's very important to make projects for the people, especially when you're in transformation projects. For example, microrayons, it will be a very complex issue, because since you have to deal with owners. So yeah, it's going to be a very complex issue to make these transformations possible, and the whole communication trajectory that is linked to a possible design process is extremely important, and probably has to start a long time before you actually start to design. But in the end, there is no blueprint for communication when you do a project. Everything has to be custom-made. Everything has to be thought of specifically for a certain question or for a certain condition you're going to be working in. So sometimes it's very important to have an idea and then to start from that idea together with the people. Sometimes it's not a very good idea to have an idea. You just first have to talk to people and to see what is actually necessary. Sometimes there is no program. Sometimes there is a very clear question, like we have to build this on this spot. How are we going to do that, and how can we make sure that everybody is convinced, also the people that live around, that this certain project has to land on that specific spot. So in all of these different conditions you start a project, the participation process that I think you have to design, also the process of participation is completely different. So depending on the context, depending on who is interested, depending on who the client is, depending on a lot of different things.